What's up, dude?
So, have you seen? You haven't seen the NASM social media influencer course by your reaction that I got offline earlier, right?
I have not seen it, and while I think it's obviously a really important thing to talk to trainers about how to market yourself online. Calling it the social media influencer course, it's such a miss for me, man. And this again, listeners, this is just me hearing about this from Jake, so I'm about to learn about it as much as you are.
So here's the thing. So I'm trying my best in my head not to just completely full send bash this whole thing. It's hard for me not to, but
Yeah.
here's the reason why. I thought all social media was the stupidest thing in the world
Right.
for 90% of my life. And
Same.
actually, I didn't even the idea of it I thought was kind of lame until started Mission Driven Made. And I'm like, okay, I see the utility with social media now. Like it can be cool
Right.
if it's used in, I don't want to say the right way because I don't even know what that means, but I did start to understand why people do it and the benefit of it, especially from a business standpoint or just from connecting with others. I'm like, okay, I get it. So I'm trying to leave my mind a little bit open to the idea of something like this.
Yeah.
But when I saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I was just rolling my eyes.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me right now? This
So
is this is what we've gone to.
the irony is that my bet is that the program itself is fairly straightforward and really more just kind of a marketing course type thing, or at least maybe less of a marketing course and more of like an assimilation with technology course for hella people who aren't with it, right? Which is super
Yeah.
valuable, and I understand why they would call that a social influencer course, but man, like our job, like as an especially me as you're NASM too, right?
No.
No, you're not
Mm-mm.
NASM. Okay, you're elite.
Nope. I
You have
have
something
yeah, through ISSA.
ISSA.
I have some other certifications, but no, I do not have a NASM one.
So as an NASM certified trainer, I feel like they do a good job in the core curriculum of really making it useful and functionally applicable. And I'm sure that this course is as well. Though my personal beliefs, as we've talked about and as we talk about a lot, is that the job of a social media influencer is in stark opposition to what we do as trainers, right? Because as we talk about, a social media influencer, their job is to influence people, whereas as a trainer, your job is to help. I guess you're still influencing people, but it's not
But it's different though. It's
influencer. Yeah,
like it's just different. I feel
totally.
the social media influencer, just that word, it's like it's a watered down version of like something that's supposed to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but to me, when I see that, it just means this sounds really bad, but it's such a narcissistic thing.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that is something, and I've told you this a couple times. I never want Mission Driven Made to be represented in that type of light, like of narcissism. And I
Yeah.
even, you know, look back at some posts that even have a small picture of me on. I was like, I don't really like where that's going. It's there's nothing wrong with people seeing our faces,
Mm.
but looking back and if I see my face so many times, like even in those small little graphics, I'm like, okay, I'm getting too narcissistic here, or it at least could appear that way to someone, and to me that misses the point. Like I want all of this to be a force for good that the brand as a whole can provide, not just like, oh, look at Jake, or oh, just look at Clayton or Andrew. Like, I know you know exactly what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
just it's hard for me to look past the narcissism. And I know
Mm-hmm.
people can make the argument, well, every business is, wanting tons of attention and exposure. Yeah, that's a fair thing.
Sure.
But to me, it for whatever reason, it seems different when it's presented behind a brand
Mm-hmm.
versus, like, or the message it's behind a brand opposed to like just me, just look at me.
Yeah.
I'm going to, wake up every day, take up pictures of myself to show the world. And, I don't know. You know where I'm going with this.
Well, we've talked about this, and I think you can see it. from the outside looking in, when you look at MDM, that, and this is going to hold true for thoughtful movement and fitness once I get that properly, you know, introduced to the world, but it should represent something that's bigger and more important and more connected than me, Clayton, as an individual, or you, Jake, as an individual, or, you know, Charlie or Charisse, who are taking the pictures, you know. And again, we're not, you know, even though me and Jake don't like a lot of pictures, we're not demonizing it either. We're just expressing our,
Right.
you know, our uncomfortability with it, because ultimately the core of it is the exact opposite of what the core of helping you is, you know, it's about feeding my ego and feeding, you know, maybe my wallet, right? And anyway, you know, I hesitate to go down our you know, our old tried and true, you know, you know, red flags and all that. But you know, the reality,
it's fun to do sometimes.
It is fun. Well, and it's funny because some days I'm like, oh man, I want to be more like positive and more cheerful on the podcast. But the reality is like at this point in time, we are in we're in a rough spot, and you can feel it from the posts of other folks who are in this realm of instead of being influencers, they're you know, health. Why are we talking about people like, you know, Jonathan Goodman, etc. You know, all these guys that we, you know, men and women that we talk about who are doing really good things out here. It's like, I don't know.
I look at, so yes, those people influence other people on social media, but there's still something different than that versus social media fitness influencer.
Totally.
You can spend 10 seconds on someone's account and you can see the difference. Now, like you just said, I completely agree. I don't want to demonize that, even though I'm sure the way I talk about it sometimes I probably do.
We wear our hearts on our sleeve.
Fair argument. But with us, like I want it to be about our message.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, you know, the unfiltered, honest, you know, truthful fitness information that we want to give out to the world. That's what I want it to be, not me standing in front of a mirror every morning flexing and showing everyone. Now, people have various reasons for doing that.
Sure.
But that's not our message. Our message is different. That has its place, but it does feel like the fitness industry, you know, every time I say that, I'm painting it as like the boogeyman, the fitness industry, you know what I mean? But anyway, so the fitness industry, or at least how many view it, it seems as though the influencer thing, that's taking over. That's like most of it now, or just seems that way.
Well, I mean, think about the reality of the fact that if you're willing to compromise, I don't want to say necessarily willing to compromise your integrity. If you're willing to make moves that for me and Jake would compromise our integrity, then there's a lot of money to be made. You know what I'm saying? Like if we're looking at just purely the ability to make a living, yeah, sure. A little fear mongering, a little guilt, you know, a little, oh, look at how good I look. And you'll only look this good if you wear Under Armour. I just happened to say like somewhere in an Under Armour shirt. It was just the image I saw. I'm hella corporated out today. I feel like I'm like a race car driver.
What's I'm probably gonna feel stupid for asking this. What's NDC?
Oh no, it's my mom's company that she works for. So it's,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adidas and underarm smelliness.
Know what my sisters used to always say to me, like when I would do what you're doing, you have Under Armour and Adidas on, they would tell me I was clashing.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that? Like, I don't know if that's a Bay Area term. I don't know if that's a known thing across the US or the world. I don't know, but I was never very, I guess, fashionable, at least not enough to my sisters. And I remember, I think I was wearing maybe Nike, I don't know, and then Adidas or something, hand-me-downs, and my sisters, one of my sisters, like, you're clashing. You can't do that. It's like, well,
my sister told me I was clashing maybe 3 days out of the week every time before school. Always.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, what are
I'm
you
like, what? What am I doing? What?
Clashing. Yeah.
Like, make sure you're matched.
Do you know if that's a Bay Area term, or is that just like everyone uses that term?
I believe that's a pretty general term for fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I haven't heard that term since the 90s or no, maybe the 2000s. I don't know. I haven't heard that in a long time, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's somebody listening somewhere who's like into fashion who is like, oh my God, who are these guys right now?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Their heads probably exploding right now, and they're probably being triggered because how stupid we are about fashion stuff.
Well, you know, it's funny because we actually have a little bit of an out because we have we work in one of the few industries that you really get to wear kind of, you know, you don't have to, I mean, don't get me wrong, we want to look good and we don't want to be totally clashing, but we basically get to wear pajamas to work. You know what I mean? Like
Dude,
exercise clothes, winning.
the two best things ever in the entire world. One is what you said, is you get to wear whatever when you're going to work. And the second part is, especially the last 10 years, it is now acceptable to wear gym clothing anywhere. And it's now called, the politically correct term is active lifestyle wear. And I love this. I only wear gym clothes 99% of the time. Dude, when I left the fire department, I was like, I'm never putting a uniform on again. Like,
Dude.
I'm going to wear gym clothes all the time. So I'm always wearing like some type of sweats, active lifestyle, right? Maybe a hoodie, a shirt. It's great, dude.
When I worked in restaurants from 15 to 30, I think 31 technically. And so for whatever that 16 years, I ironed and laid out, like I ironed my slacks, I ironed my shirt. I didn't iron my tie, I lift my tie out, right, or whatever. But I wore, and sometimes I didn't have to wear a tie, depends on the, you know, where I was working, whatever. But I wore that, like a white shirt, black slacks every day for like 15 years, basically. Again, few exceptions in there. So when I became a trainer, man, I should say when I left, I finished my food service, we'll call it, actually finishing up at a Whole Foods. So that's anyway. But once I left there, I was like, it's done. I'm not. This is all I'm wearing. This is it. I don't even need to
That's
bed.
it.
Like to bed. I will come home from a session and crawl in bed as is.
Clayton Daly would bring out the little portable ironing board and put it right on the coffee table, just like scoot everything to the side.
Oh, that was
Hey,
a
it's
trouble
the
too,
best.
because then you dip the sleeve in something shit on the table.
Yeah.
That was your uniform, essentially.
Well, and at least I would say I would imagine that you had a certain amount of, like, you had to stay clean and presentable because you're working for the fire department, right? You don't need to stay
Oh,
clean and
gosh.
presentable as a server. You know, you need to wear the outfit, and you need to maintain a level of hygiene that's not offensive. You know what I mean? It's a very different
Yep.
standard.
But dude, it didn't make sense completely. Like I get the uniform thing, I totally do, especially if you're like out in public or whatever. But it's like you have to show up to work, you know, in this really expensive uniform, and it's not the most comfortable thing, you know, in the world. And then you'd have to. One of the first things we would do in the morning is, you know, check all of our equipment. So I'd check all of our, you know, medic stuff on the fire engine, and then all the fire gear, you know, all our tools. Everything's like dirty, and it's like you're just ruining this really expensive uniform. It's like it doesn't make any sense. And then you don't wear that stuff when you go to fires. Like you strip down into your basketball shorts and your shirt, and so it just like delays time to put on your. I don't know. It's just like. It just seemed like a waste to me, but that was just me, and I'm just obsessed with wearing gym clothes. So I'm
Gotta have like a little poster appearance or something, you know, the clean cut, the
a poster appearance.
But see, what I'm picturing now is how much more enjoyable would it be to like walk into a fire station and everybody's just in their freaking like basketball shorts and nasty ass. That'd be funny. I'd
A lot of
enjoy
people
walking.
though, like people that have been on the job for a long time will just stay in their shorts and their
Oh,
shirt
really?
the whole day. Yeah, like
That's awesome.
yeah, so I mean it depends on the station and where you are, but that's like really typical. If
Mm,
you're like newer, most of the time you're going to be in the uniform unless it's, you know, at nighttime or whatever. But yeah,
makes
that
sense.
you will see that going into certain stations. And it's kind of cool here, like with Phoenix Fire, like they're like nice uniform. They have like one that's actually shorts because it's so
Oh,
hot here.
sick.
So they'll like wear those. Like we didn't have, we had basketball shorts, but like we wouldn't go out in public with that or anything. But like they actually can do that because it gets so hot here. They have like, blue, not cargo pants. I don't even know what you call them, but they legit wear shorts here. So
Sounds like it could get kind of hot in San Diego in those slacks, huh?
oh, dude, San Diego's nothing. I'm talking about out here in Phoenix, dude. It's
Well, I'm saying though in San Diego still, if you didn't have shorts out, because at least the
yeah,
Phoenix firefighters have shorts, right?
right. Yes, good point.
I'd
Yeah.
imagine there's still some days
Mhm.
in San Diego where you're like, oh.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know the weather, like especially right on the coast, there can be really nice. But if you go inland just a little bit, it does get hot. Like you will have your days in the 90s and all that, which isn't anything compared to other places. But
Doesn't it get pretty
um,
hot in San Diego too? I haven't
well,
spent much time down there, but I thought it could get into like the 110
so
area.
when it gets that hot, it's everywhere for the most part, like the east part of the county, it will get that hot. But like in the city limits, it typically doesn't really get up to 100.
Hmm.
Like a normal summer day would be, I don't know, 75 degrees on the hotter side, high 80s, I guess. But if you go out east in San Diego, it does get really hot out there. Like if you drive inland just like 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, that's when it's like out in the hundreds and all that. So it's can get pretty hot for sure. Oh, dude, it's super cool. There's snow like really close to where we are right now. It's been like cold here for the last day or two. Clayton, I was complaining the other day to you that it's like our winter was like a week long or
Mm-hmm.
so, but we got a piece of winter back. Like it snowed all around like the mountains around here and stuff. It looks really cool. So
Dude, the other day on our last podcast, remember I was like, "Oh my god, there was just thunder outside of my window and it was raining."
yeah.
Dude, I went out after it had snowed. It snowed in San Ramon, like legit snow. I mean, it
What?
was heavy hail that was a little soft, but
Oh, like sleet, kind of.
yeah, it was honestly probably there was hail and there was snow and it was, so I guess sleet is really kind of the combination, right?
Yeah, it's
Pretty
something
much.
like that.
So yeah, I guess sleet would be probably the correct term. But like, I don't know if this is not going to translate to the podcast by any means, but I'm going to show you two anyway, and anyone else who's on. But like, you can see outside my window, outside my door, you can see like the tan
Oh,
Oh
bark,
yeah.
and
oh,
then all
dang.
that was the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clayton's showing us a cool picture of it. Legit looks like snow from where we
Hmm.
can see it. That's awesome.
And
I
up
maybe had
close it
seen
did
that like
too.
only twice in that area ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've never
that's awesome.
seen it. And like when you like I went out, like it was like hours later and there was still snow on the ground, just like legit, being somewhere where it actually snows, not San Ramon.
Have you seen Mount Diablo lately? Like, I'm sure there's snow there, or
Yeah, I
there would
bet.
have been.
I haven't looked up there, but I'm sure when it snowed here, it got hit pretty
Yeah.
hard up there.
Is it cold for you guys right now? How is it there?
Oh yeah. I think it's pretty cold. Well, nighttime is really cold, I should say. So it got down to like 29 degrees last night.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh,
Frost on the roofs again, like a February weather should be, right?
Yeah.
dude.
True that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh, that makes me miss the Bay again every time you guys talk about it. But it did get this morning when I woke up, it was 34 degrees. So I was in a really good mood. I love when it's cold like that. It's
Nice.
fantastic. AJ, you missed out. We had a whole conversation about social media influencers and how where Clayton got his personal training certification from. They literally have a social media influencer course. I don't know if you caught
A
that at all.
course on how to be an influencer.
How to
Yeah.
be an influencer, and this is
Interesting.
from like a very well respected organization too. So we were we were talking about our thoughts on that, and I don't know if you caught like the tail end of that or anything.
I
But
didn't catch anything about that. I don't know if you guys want to go over it again, but I'm intrigued.
no, it's just so I don't know all the details with it, but it's an actual course that they sell now, where you can get like continuing education units from them. So it's like a legitimate course. So we were
Mhm.
just saying, it feels like the industry, it's social media fitness influencers takeover type of a thing now. That's what it seems like. So much of it is. Oh, and I did forget to mention Clay. I just saw this happen a day or two ago. There's a very large social media influencer from Scottsdale, which is, 30, 40 minutes from where we live. Don't remember the guy's name. I had never heard of him, but he has like 1 or 2 million followers, I guess, on Instagram. And I guess he was being very inappropriate with female clients. and like would have videos of him just being way too handsy and some other stuff. And so a bunch of people reported him.
Good.
And then apparently now he is filing a lawsuit saying that people like, defamed his name or whatever it's called, or slandered his name. I don't remember the technical term. But yeah, so there's a little thing going on right now. But I saw some of the videos and like photos of this dude that he'd put up. I'm like, man, you're getting a little handsy there for a trainer. But yeah, he's a social media influencer essentially. So
well, thank goodness that people reported him. I feel like as somebody who is in the position where I oftentimes need to be physically close to a client, it's like you got to be real on your game with that, even if you're not a creep. So if you're a creep and you're trying to be creepy under the cover, undercover, which is what it sounds like, I think, because in 2022, nobody's like, oh, I didn't know I shouldn't have been touching them. You know what I mean? Nobody's like, oh, what do you mean I'm too handsy? Like, come on, guy. You know what I mean? Anyway.
When a woman's doing I'm trying to remember what movement it was, but anyways, you don't need to touch the side of a woman's butt when they're doing a movement. Like putting your hands like all up in their business. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's
you don't need to touch
I'm saying that like every influencer does that, but I just thought of that because I saw that like a day or two ago.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's always going to be creeps and there's always going to be stuff like this. And so, it's just good that people are paying attention and doing something about it, because that's an opportunity, because a lot of trainers will do that one-on-one. I'm sure that there's a lot of that goes unreported, all the time.
Oh, for sure. Because people are probably like, oh, I mean, he's probably supposed to do this.
Right.
He's probably supposed to like grab me right here. Yeah. It's like, no, you really don't have to grab.
Yeah.
Not like that all the time. No. You really don't have to do that. So
a tip of a finger in the right place, like a tap on the shoulder, is all you need, tops. Like you don't need anything more than that, because all you need to do is highlight an area of correction so that the client knows that they need to correct that area. You don't need to correct it for them. So if you're not correcting it for them, what are you doing?
Yep.
Just point, or say, hey, you mind if I, I'm going to touch your back. One finger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could always kind of verbalize, oh, is it okay if I show you this? Like
always verbalize. Even with clients that I know, like we've been together for a long time and I know that they're comfortable with me touching them, I still say every time before I go, I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna come and give you a correction, I'm gonna touch you here, whatever I say, and these are people who I know well and know me well, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Dude, how's Thoughtful Movement going? I haven't asked you.
It's really good overall, but it's one of these things where it's definitely back burner right now. My focus is making sure MDM is where it needs to be before I start focusing on Thoughtful Movement and Fitness. For those of you who are listening who aren't aware, Thoughtful Movement and Fitness is my own Clayton, my own brand that I had got kind of started right as Jake invited me to be a guest on his podcast a few months ago. And I was like, oh, great. I was like, I started getting, got all my pictures, got my website and got everything started. And then Jake was like, hey, you want to be a co-host? And I was like, all right. Fuck Thoughtful Movement and Fitness. No, not really. I mean, I didn't really say, F Thoughtful Movement and Fitness, but I was like, that's definitely back burner now, because, the opportunity to the opportunity to sit and like talk to my friends about fitness and have it pay off in my business, which when I say pay off, I don't mean financially as much as now I have a method that I can direct people to where they can hear that, what I know and think about fitness without having to ever come and train with me, right? Like all somebody has to do is get on to Spotify, listen to about 10 minutes of our podcast, and they're going to know whether they want to come train with me or not, So it's one of those.
You're polarizing.
I am.
That's
I
how
am
they'll know you're
polarizing.
so polarizing.
We know what's funny is actually, so I wouldn't, I know you're mostly joking, but the funny thing is so the Mr. Poop String. So Mr. Poop String is my Twitch handle, which I haven't been on lately. I will be back on it at some point as part of Thoughtful Movement and Fitness. But my poop handle, my Twitch handle is Mr. Poop String, and the reason why I chose, the reason why I chose it is because it made me happy and I love it. But part of the reason why I kept it and continue to use it in a semi-professional setting is because it kind of acts as like a little filtering process, because anybody who anybody who is willing to go and work with and train with somebody who calls themselves Mr. Poopstring is not going to take themselves too seriously. Someone who takes themselves really seriously, and of course there are people who are going to be turned off against that. I'm not talking about those people, but somebody who takes themselves really seriously is going to be like, oh, Mr. Poopstring, I'll never train with somebody who calls himself Mr. Poopstring. So I think when I get business through that filter, they tend to already have come with this attitude of like, all right, we're going to take it nice and light and easy and, train with Mr. Poop, which is actually what people call me more than Mr. Poop String because it's just a lot of words. So, yeah, lots of people call me Mr. Poop. It's actually kind of funny.
You have such a unique audience and just a group of people that you can reach. Before Clayton came on, I never in a million years really thought of like gamers, in that respect. I mean, you could just say they're part of the general population of people regarding training, but at the same time it does feel a little bit different. I feel like that's a group of people that you could especially reach that maybe AJ or I couldn't. So it's I'm really excited to see what happens with everything related to all the gamers you're reaching. I know like Thoughtful Movement doesn't like have to be gamers or anything. I'm referring to more of like Twitch and all that. It's going to be really cool to see the people that you can reach, because I definitely wouldn't be the person to be able to lead that.
You hit the nail on the head with the structure of how you said, like, because so Thoughtful Movement and Fitness is the brand, is the banner. Within that are separate kind of pieces of what I offer, and one of those pieces I call Mr. Poopstring's Gamer Fitness. So within the title of Thoughtful Movement and Fitness, which is really psychology based, and a psychology based approach to movement and fitness, is this kind of little subsect of of people I'm trying to reach, because the reality is so many people play games now, and as a gamer, I know that we like to, once we start playing a game, we don't put it down for, we don't play for a half hour. You know what I mean? Nobody plays for a half hour. I mean, some people, very few people play for a half hour. You get on, and if you have time, you spend probably 2 hours, like minimum, if you don't have other responsibilities, right? For, I'd say an average gamer, that's the case, especially the way games are nowadays. Well, that's 2 hours that you're sitting on your butt. You know what I mean? Like, that's 2 hours where like that same person might be like, I don't have time to exercise. Well, do you? And
That's
the nice
actually
thing about that
genius.
is, for me, is, sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but the nice thing for me is I've asked that question lots of times, and for me, I am way more fit just because I work out while I play video games, and it seems silly, but
I mean, it's genius because it's very easy to just kind of come up with the idea, oh, well, if they're just getting up every 10 minutes or whatever it is and doing a set, like that's not going to do anything. But think about someone that literally has zero physical activity, is completely sedentary playing games, does that from, okay, a couple times a week, I'm going to take a total of 20 minutes and do these movements. Like that's actually huge. That's actually, I mean, going from nothing to that, I mean, that's genius. I don't know if you purposely planned all that on your part. I'm sure you did. You're smiling, so that probably means you you had a lot of thought behind it. But yeah, for mission driven made, what that will mean in the future is, I'm at this point, I'll have nothing to do with Thoughtful Movement. It'd be more of like it'll be linked in on our website on Mission Driven Made and some other stuff like that. Clayton's, obviously leading all that, but it's gonna be really cool to see where that goes.
well, and I fervently hope to bring both of you guys in to do whatever makes sense for you guys to do, and thoughtful movement and fitness is very different from MDM in the sense that thoughtful movement and fitness is really just kind of a umbrella for all the things I do. So it's not like there's some active thing that I'm doing with that. I'm doing a bunch of active things with that, but it's just kind of my day to day, right? Whereas MDM is like this is a whole thing. You know what I mean? This is like, we've got plans for this, and as Jake has said, it's our goal to be kind of like the best part of your day, or the part of the day that you look forward to the most. Especially if you're like driving into work or something. Like, throw on MDM and just listen to me and Andrew and Jake bullshit for a little bit.
I love the best part of your day thing. A little catch line or catchphrase I'd always hear from CrossFit coaches back when I used to do that was, we want this to be the best hour of your day, because classes were typically an hour. And I feel like really good podcasts can sometimes be the best hour of someone's day. You know what I mean? Really, really good podcasts. So that is a huge goal of ours, and that we want to do for everyone, is bring that type of value to where you want to listen, maybe be entertained a little bit when we talk about some of these silly conversations, but then, more important than that, we want to give you really useful fitness information that you can actually apply in your life every day. And we want all of this stuff, especially or related to the podcast specifically, to be free, because I've noticed it's like a trend with people selling all types of garbage on the internet that isn't worth what people are paying for at all, and it's normally from influencers, to be honest. So we want to provide this no cost fitness information to you guys, and we want it to be really valuable. And at the end of the day, it'd be great if it was the best hour of the day, like you're saying, Clay. You're getting me all excited now. Should we get into fitness or what, guys?
Let's do it. It's no better time.
Yes,
all right, let's do it. So we're going to kick off our fitness focus section with the question of, should you increase weight or volume first? Now, this is a fantastic question. And to start this, I'm going to split hairs with all of you just for a moment. So if you add weight, okay, and you don't add any volume, so you don't add, any extra sets, you just add weight, you are technically also increasing the volume. At least in many cases you are, okay? So volume, or more specifically volume load, that would be the more appropriate term. It's technically the weight you lifted times reps times sets. So it's not just sets necessarily like a lot of us view volume as. Now, let me give you an example to show you what I mean by volume load. So the example would be, say you bench press 100 pounds, okay? And you do 3 sets of 10 repetitions with that 100 pounds. So that would be a total of 30 repetitions at 100 pounds. 30 times 100 is 3,000 pounds. So we can look at the volume, or the load volume, as 3,000 pounds. Hopefully I haven't lost all you guys with those numbers yet. So let's say you decide to do this again, but instead of doing the 100 pounds, you want to do 105 pounds. We're still going to do 3 sets, and we're still going to do 10 reps per set. So the end of the 3 sets, we're looking at 30 reps again, but instead of the total of 3,000 pounds, it is now 3,150, okay? So yes, technically you did the same amount of sets with both of those situations, but the second time around in that situation, with you benching 105 pounds instead of the 100 pounds, it is now a volume load of 3,150. So the point I was trying to make there, I wasn't trying to confuse everyone. Hopefully I didn't too much. I know that might be kind of hard to picture, is by increasing the weight just a little bit like that, we increased the volume load. So technically, if we do add weight, in a way, we are adding a little bit of volume. Now, I strongly believe many people, if not most, would benefit with increasing the weight first instead of just adding sets on. Now, this is assuming, of course, proper lifting technique, and that you aren't adding so much weight that you're just doing that to add weight. So basically, you're not doing way more weight than you can handle, is the point that I'm trying to make. So this isn't just if you want to get stronger, because obviously some of you might say, well, obviously you're going to add weight if you want to get stronger. This is also, if this would be applied to if you wanted to build muscle. My case for this applies to muscle building as well. And a very underutilized technique to muscle building, and we've talked about this a few times on the show. I think recently, Clay, we talked about this too, is incorporating cycles, if not a cycle, or at least just pieces of your weekly training where you are working with heavier loads. So I'm talking, 3 to 5, maybe 3 to 6 reps. As you do this over time and get stronger, it's going to allow you to build muscle. Now, just to paint this in maybe a reductionist type of way, imagine if you could curl 30 pounds 4 times, and then say you got a little bit stronger, and eventually you could say curl 40 pounds 10 times. You are probably going to have a little bit bigger of a bicep muscle if you can curl 40 pounds 10 times. So that's why I want to make the argument that adding weight first and not just volume, this is beneficial for most parties. Now, the problem that happens is people get so obsessed with adding volume, and I don't want to undercut how important volume is. You do need a certain amount of volume to build muscle. That is absolutely true. But we kind of start doing what is junk volume, to where there's diminishing returns, right? So we hit the sweet spot, and instead of like, okay, this is my optimal range, I should stop here. It's, wait, how much more can I do?
Yeah.
So just because you can do a little bit more doesn't mean it's going to be beneficial. There's a very good dose-response relationship with the amount of volume you're doing and the actual muscle that you're going to build. After a certain point, like I said, it's going to have diminishing returns, and there's going to be no point to it. So that is my argument for why most people, including general population, should think about adding weight first, or even you can even have the mentality, okay, I want to get stronger over time, instead of just, I want to, look bigger or more muscular. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel if we focus on strength and just improving our performance like that slowly over time, I really think that is going to be the way to go. And the one last little thing I wanted to say here, if you are someone that just loves to pack on the volume in all your workouts, just something to consider. Make sure you're not doing so much to the point where you can't recover from it. Everyone's going to be a little bit different with what that number is, so just keep that in mind.
There's a few things I kind of want to touch on, but for the most part, I'm just kind of with you listeners and accepting what Jake has said. But I do want to express that there is value in, in higher repetition outside of what Jake's talked about, which is increased calories burned by raising that volume without raising that weight. You can continue to do the movement longer, and you can potentially get more calories burned in that way. But it's kind of a losing game, because what is really more to the point is what Jake is talking about, which is simply selecting the correct weight for where you're at the time. Because while Jake is talking specifically about increasing the weight that you're lifting, I lost my train of thought. I think that there's so much things I wanted to touch on with that. Sorry. The idea, guys, is really utilizing the tools that you have at hand in the most optimal way. So, generally speaking, selecting the amount of weight that's going to be challenging to you, appropriately challenging to you, is going to result in better results. And it's a kind of a roundabout way of saying the exact same thing Jake's saying, which is focus on the task at hand as opposed to, just doing work for the sake of work. Because it comes back down to I love the phrase you said, junk. What do you say, junk reps?
Junk volume.
Perfect. Yeah. Again, there is the argument for calories burned in junk volume, but that's the only argument. And so when you're talking about the value you can get out of exercise, very rarely should we be saying the only value we're getting out of something is calories burned, and unless you're an athlete, or it's trying to lose fat weight, or obviously we get into specifics, but again, generally speaking, raise your weight, find the appropriately challenging weight, and then adjust the amount of reps and sets around the weight.
And two, I even want to just mention your point about adding, more volume and more calories burned. I think that's even somewhat of a losing battle if we
Yeah,
do that.
definitely.
We've talked about that before. And
Yeah.
during a normal person's, hour workout of resistance training, you're not there's not that high of calorie expenditure anyway with resistance training. There's tons of benefits from it, of course, but when we look at it as calories burned, it is a bit of a losing battle. As Clay was mentioning, that's another reason why maybe we should think of strength first a little bit, or moving the appropriate weight versus let's just keep going, on the extra sets. So absolutely. And let's go to our next point for today, our next topic, actually, and that is going to be isometrics. So isometrics, it's a static contraction of a muscle without any movement or angle at your joint. So think of contracting a muscle and holding it still. Now, a normal quote unquote movement, say, I keep saying bicep curls. I don't know why I keep bringing that that specific movement up, but with a bicep curl, so the movement is first concentric as you curl the weight up toward your shoulder, and then as you lower the weight, that would be considered the eccentric part. So an isometric would say be if you're just holding a bicep curl like this and not moving, that would be an isometric. Now, why am I bringing this up? It's another underutilized tool. It really had me thinking the other day when we were talking about sled training, how underutilized that tool is. I felt the same with isometrics, and that there is so much application and where we can use isometrics. Now, the most common that you'll probably see people doing isometrics with at the gym, I would say, is during their warm up, and I think that's not a bad idea whatsoever. If you want to do that beforehand, it's definitely a decent way to do that. But I like it for a few different reasons. Now, studies have shown people doing isometrics. The study I'm referring to, it was one regarding knee pain, and doing isometrics around your knee resulted in immediate relief of knee pain for upwards of close to an hour, I believe the number was. So it's a pretty cool tool that anyone can access to help with their pain. And for me, anecdotally, this has also been the case. I've used this, in my own training to help relieve pain. Here's another way we can apply this tool, and that is using it as a progression or regression for movements. Now, let me give you an example. If you think of doing, say, a parallel dip, and you are not quite strong enough to do a dip, maybe you use a resistance band to help yourself go up and down during your dip, and you're ready to kind of move on to the next step, but still you're not quite strong enough to do the full body weight dip. So what you can do, we can do isometrics. You can jump up on the top of the bars and hold your arms in an extended position and just hold it there. And a more advanced or progression from there, you could hold the bottom of a dip where your elbow is flexed. Doing this over time, you're preparing your body to eventually be able to do the entire movement. And these work extremely well. My wife actually started doing those recently, and I've watched her get strong in what feels like the matter of no time. It's pretty cool, actually. Adeline, like,
Nice.
she responds very well to resistance training. I'm kind of jealous. It's like for every 10 years I do, like, she could probably do in like a year. But anyways, though, I'm just jealous for her genetics. But anyways, though, it's a great tool. Holding isometrics in certain movements like this to be able to do the actual full range of motion movement eventually. I mentioned to you guys that I've been doing this in my own training recently. So I've been doing Sorensen holds on the GHD machine. of course, to strengthen my posterior chain. But I wanted to test it out to see if it would help with back pain, just anecdotally, if it would. And it gives me almost immediate relief the second I'm done doing the movement. So it's a great tool. It can help reduce your pain. It's great as a regression or progression for a movement. And another thing, it also feels as though we can recover from doing these a little bit easier than, say, an eccentric or concentric movement. Now, it doesn't have quite as much as a powerful muscle building effect as concentric and eccentric, but nevertheless, it still has its place. And I think it's pretty cool to know we have certain tools that will allow us to maybe not acquire quite as much muscle damage or muscle soreness. I think that's kind of a cool thing. Of course, to know we have that tool in our toolbox. And this goes without saying. I know I've said this a lot lately, but none of this is, again, medical advice. If there's something wrong with a body part, this is general advice, as we can't sit there and see what, if someone has a specific injury. I'm not telling you if your, kneecap fell off to go and do this. Please, as always, I've been saying this all the time. I'm always scared someone's gonna take me literally if their knee fell off or something.
Right.
But please see a PT or your MD, of course, if something like that unfortunately happened. But just a fantastic tool that we have in our toolbox, which is Isometrics.
I'd like to take the opportunity to present an example of an obvious isometric exercise that you guys are all familiar with, and then a less obvious one that I find super helpful, like Jake says, anecdotally in my own life. The obvious one is going to be planks. And, I don't think I really need to describe why. You can, listeners, imagine why a plank would fit into the description of a static contraction of a muscle without movement in the angle of the joint. That one's going to be one of the ones that has some great value, sets you up to start doing your push-ups, sets you, gives you a really nice foundational core. If you practice them, especially if you have a less strong core. But the less obvious one is called PMR. It's called progressive muscle relaxation. I'm going to repeat that. PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. And what it is basically, it's a technique. I learned about it via mental health. But basically what it is you start in one area of your body flexing a certain set of muscles. So like maybe you start on your feet and you start by flexing your toes and extending your toes, and then you do the same thing with your the angle of your foot, so that you get that anterior tibialis and you get your calf, and then you move up progressively throughout your body. But by flexing and I think it's 30 seconds you're supposed to do each muscle group, but by flexing and then releasing, you can relieve body anxiety. You can, just warm up your body. It works from a fitness perspective. It's a great way to just kind of get your body moving. Not that that's how I tend to use it. Typically, this is a tool for those of us who like to get into bed and sit and squirm and not sleep. So if you're somebody who has a lot of kind of physical anxiety, PMR, progressive muscle relaxation, is a great isometric movement for you to use, whether you're talking about fitness or just kind of general mental health.
So Clay, would this mainly be done as you're saying, when you're getting into bed, or would this also be part of someone's training routine, like if they were at the gym?
If you were going to use it as part of a training routine, it has uses, but you can get the same things done better with other movements. So really, this is an outside of the gym tool, but you can absolutely use, you can use it anywhere. It's one of those things for me, I use it mostly for my physical anxiety. So I use it everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing it even right now, even sometimes while we're talking. Someone else is talking. You know what I mean? So definitely outside of the gym, but it does have its benefits. You can imagine if you're going through your body, flexing different muscles, you're warming that part up, and you're getting exertion, and you're getting all the things that you were talking about with your isometric spiel. So
Gotcha.
You know,
Have you? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna talk about a personal experience real quick, because I know you had touched on isometrics and like people who are dealing with injuries and stuff like that. And I've been a little injury prone in my life. I can go over a laundry list of injuries, down the road somewhere. But I was a soccer player in high school, and I've had some tendon issues in my hip. And shortly after, like I found that doing squats or leg press or movements like that was really hard for me to actually do the full movement of it. So that's where isometrics became really beneficial for me. Like to do a wall sit was really beneficial for me to actually be able to work out that muscle without feeling a sort of pain.
I really like that part of isometrics where I feel like you can just own that movement just right there, and there's not this worry of, at least for me, when I'm injured and I'm trying to push it a little bit too hard, it's very easy to overdo it, whether that's with weight or reps. But I like the fact with isometrics, like you were saying, you can just hold it and you just own that one position or that one movement. So, and I completely forgot about all your injuries back in the day. You were all kinds of messed up at different times too, huh?
Yeah, quite a few of them. Between all the sports, I played a lot of baseball, a lot of soccer, and a lot of recreational sports. I mean, a whole laundry list of them. But injuries have been with me for some time.
Both of you guys have had a lot of injuries. I remember both you guys growing up. But also, what I also remember is that you two mofos go harder than anybody I know. Brian's up there with you guys, but like nobody goes as hard as you guys do. Like I tell people all the time when I go snowboarding with Brian and Andrew, that they're up there, we get there beginning of the day, they are on a run or on a lift the entire day until like the people kick them off of the snow, off of the resort. Whereas I'm like, I get in, I'm like, I ease in, I'll go down a couple times, I'll go, get a coffee, go up a couple times, get a snack,
One run and Clayton's getting his snacks and his coffee.
It's so real. It's so funny. I hope that my brothers, my stepbrothers, and my stepdad don't listen to this episode, because there's a running joke how in our family about how when I was a kid and we'd go out and play football in the yard, on the street or whatever, we'd play, we'd do one down and then I'd run and go get a water. And still to this day, my oldest brother Al, like, we'll bring it up, at family gatherings, and just like laugh his ass off, and I'm always like, oh, like, I want to be like, to like defend myself, but it's like there's no defense.
You're like, I'm just trying to stay hydrated, bro.
He's got to go get a water with a Camelback on him.
Hell yeah. And it's sparkling water, mother.
Oh, that's too funny. We should, okay, Clay, because we always do this, so we're gonna have to actually remember. We always say, oh, we should do a Friday debrief on this topic, and then we forget. We legitimately should do one related to injuries and pain. I think this would be a fascinating topic. It's such a complex topic, and I feel the information coming out, especially that I've been learning from a lot of PTs and physios and all, it's been fascinating. It's really changed my mind about injuries and pain and how it's not so black and white. And that would be a fun episode to do. Now that there's two of you here listening to me, there's three of us to be able to remember that we have to do this for a future episode. So we always do that. Okay, we're going to do that next week. Okay, you wrote it down. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, so we'll definitely do that for a Friday debrief, and then Andrew can talk about all the types of messed up he was when he was younger and all his injuries and whatnot. So that'll be a fun episode.
It's going to be a long one then if we're going to talk about
I know. You guys better grab your popcorn and get comfortable. So we'll definitely do it soon.
I can throw in some stuff about head injuries in there. That's for sure. We'll have a whole slew of stuff to talk about on that day. Yeah, that might be longer than a regular Friday debrief.
I know. So let's finish off the episode today with a Q&A question. And this is another long-running myth that many of you probably heard over the years, and that is regarding starvation mode. Does it exist, and is it the reason I am gaining weight? So first of all, what is starvation mode? And this is the phenomenon that people are referring to, where you are eating so little that you are actually gaining body fat. Now, I want to start this off by saying most of the time, and data has shown this as well, most of the time, people are not, especially if they're tracking their food, they are not doing so in an accurate way. They are severely underreporting their calories. This is especially when people eyeball their food and say, okay, all right, this is 200 calories of pasta, or this, whatever it may be. People very, very much so underreport their calories. And it's not always on purpose. It's more of a user error type of thing. So a lot of people that think they're actually in a calorie deficit, they're actually in a calorie surplus and are gaining weight. So that's the first thing that I want to throw out there. And it's been shown in literature that people will underestimate their calories from 70 to even upwards of 80% at times, underreport their calories. And this even goes for registered dietitians. They can be off by 10, even 20% with the calories that they report, or be under by that amount. So just keep that in mind. If you are trying to lose body fat or lose weight in general, a lot of the time it's because the calories that you think you're consuming, it's actually way more. Let's just look at peanut butter, for example. I mean, look at the serving size on that. Who actually has a PB&J with one serving of peanut butter? Now, I'm not demonizing peanut butter, and that's not the reason why someone's gaining weight, but just knowing that serving is so small. I probably load up 5 or 6 servings of those mofos when I'm having a PB&J. Like, let's be real. And serving of
8 or
peanut
9.
butters.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just
seriously.
picture Jake just like
Yeah,
just like surrounded by peanut butter, like gallon peanut butter jars, and he's got it all over his
you
face.
guys aren't lying at all. That's the truth. And so yeah, the serving, it's I think it's 2 tablespoons or something.
2 tablespoons, yeah.
Close to 200 calories. So the point being, certain foods like peanut butter, oils like olive oil, that's another one. These can all be great and healthy things, in a balanced diet, but it's very easy to overconsume those. So keep that in mind. I know it's like painful to hear, especially someone if they're on a cutting phase, or they're trying to lose a little bit of body fat, whatever it is. If that is your goal, a lot of times we're actually eating way more than we think we are. And this also comes in, all forms, like extra calories. This could be, I've heard a lot of moms say this before, where they eat their kids' snacks throughout the day, or their leftover food, so you don't have to throw it away. That's a pretty common thing. Or you get liquid calories and you're drinking juice or milk, whatever it is, and you're not really paying attention, realizing you just consumed hundreds of calories that way. So all this stuff really does add up, and it can lead to us definitely not reporting the calories in an accurate way. Now, with that being said, so what actually happens when you're in a calorie deficit? So we are burning more or expending more calories than we are consuming. That would be considered a calorie deficit. That's what you have to do to lose weight. So what happens as we are in a calorie deficit, and over time, when we start to lose weight, what actually happens is our metabolism is then adjusting to your smaller frame, or the reduction in calories. With it being less, our metabolism is slowing down. So you'll hear people say they have a slow metabolism. So what it's actually doing is adapting, which is a completely normal process that everyone needs. And we would die if we didn't have these metabolic processes.
We need it.
So we need it, absolutely. So we are just adapting. Your calories are adapting. Now, there's also a secondary effect that I see with people that are reducing their calories, especially if you're someone that does it drastically. So this is more of a correlation versus a causation type of effect. But as you reduce your calories, you become less active during the day. You may notice you're sitting a little bit more, and then even doing things that you aren't thinking about, like twitching and moving your fingers and toes, and all these type of movements that do equate to calories metabolized at the end of the day. You're doing that less many times when you're in a calorie deficit. So starvation mode, as people portray, no, it does not exist. It is your metabolism simply adapting to where you are at that moment. And one thing I did want to add, if that is you, there's a few ways, not around this, but I guess you could say good advice if you're stuck there and you feel like you're not really eating enough calories and you feel like you're moving a lot throughout the day, you're exercising a lot, you're doing cardio, resistance training, whatever it is, and you're like the needle's just not moving. At that point, it'd be smart to take maybe a diet break to where you eat at a quote unquote maintenance level. So you're eating enough to maintain essentially, or maybe even a bit of a surplus, just a little bit, and do that for a little bit. And people will call that a metabolism reset. I don't like that word because your metabolism doesn't stop.
Right.
You're not actually resetting. But when people say that, I think that's what they're referring to. So it's smart if you've been severely restricting your calories, take a little bit of a break. And it's really cool too. A lot of the literature coming out about reverse dieting. So essentially, you're slowly bringing up your calories over time. So if you're that person, I would recommend doing that for a little while. But yes, your metabolism has adapted. You're not in starvation mode and you're not gaining body fat while you're in a calorie deficit.
Awesome. I don't have anything to add to that. It's spot on.
Drop the mic for the day.
Drop mic drop. Beautiful.
All right. Awesome, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast today. If you haven't already, and if you have been enjoying our content, please subscribe to the show. Leave us a review at the bottom if you can. It's going to help us grow tremendously and it'd be greatly appreciated. If you would like to find us on Instagram, you can find us at Mission Driven Made. We are active on there. Also, if you would like to be part of actually free, we're not going to try to sell you anything, no upsells, actually free fitness community. We have one on Facebook and it's called The Forum. So if you went to Facebook and you typed in Mission Driven Made The Forum, you can find us there. You also will find a link in the show notes for that. So just a place that you can go to converse with other listeners of the podcast if you want to, or you can ask any of us questions that are fitness related and we'd be happy to answer them. Some questions will actually be featured on future podcast episodes. All right, everyone, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, stay mission driven.
All right, Twitch viewers, now is your time for our live Q&A. I'd like to start by saying thank you for lifting with the Joneses for the raid. We're very happy to have you here. Jake, Andrew, and myself come on here 3 days a week, and yeah, you can find our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube, all that good stuff. So, if you'd like, we do, like I said, we do this live Q&A. So if anybody has any questions for personal trainers or nutrition coaches, Jake's also an Olympic lifting coach. So we got all kinds of good stuff. And, don't worry about asking questions if you don't have any, but don't hesitate if you, would like to stick around either this time or another time. We will do the live Q&A after each podcast, generally speaking. That said, I haven't seen any questions, so I think with that, we're going to go ahead and bid you adieu. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you go listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and then we'll be back here Monday at 3:45 Pacific Standard Time, roughly. All right. Thanks, guys.
Recording stopped.
Oh, we do have a question. Okay, we're gonna come back real quick. Sorry. Lifting with the Joneses says, I like the powerlifting. LL. What is your way to help motivate getting back into the gym when other things are keeping your interest? That's a good question. Yeah.
Do you want me to start with this, Clay?
Yeah, you sound like you have a good answer.
Yeah. So, I feel when it's a question of motivation, and we're seeking some type of motivation to start something, a lot of times it's never going to come until you actually start it. And I've noticed to feel motivation, a lot of times that's going to require you to take action first. If it comes the other way, that's great.
Yeah.
If the motivation magically comes and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, that's a win. That's huge. But typically, action first, that motivation will then come. And the great news with this too is over time, you're not going to need or necessarily want this feeling of motivation to go and train. Yes, motivation is great. I'm not, ragging on it. It's fantastic. It drives a lot of human behavior to some regard. But take action first, even if you don't feel like it whatsoever. Take action, whether that is, okay, this week I'm going to go to the gym twice, and have it in your schedule and do it. And then after a little while, it's going to become part of your routine. And like I said, the motivation won't be needed.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be basically my answer too. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time belaboring the point because Jake just said it really nicely. But it's one of these things where we tend to think that we can kind of think our way into good action, but really you got to kind of act your way into good thinking. So
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I'm, and that's not an original from me. That I don't remember where I got that from, but that's you know, it's a really important aspect when you're talking about doing something that lots of times we don't want to do. Even us, Jake and Andrew and I are all passionate about it, and there's still days where we're like, we don't want to do it. So us those days where that discipline kind of kicks in and really makes a difference.
And I would say, sorry, did you still have something, Clay?
No, there's just another, they posted more words to read, but I'll read that after you respond.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I'm really big into setting yourself up for success. And for me, this comes in, have your stuff ready the night before. So especially if you're not feeling motivated to go to the gym, say tomorrow, tonight, what really helps is create some visual cues for you to see in the morning when you wake up. So this could be having your gym clothes and your shoes out, and say your phone away from your bed, so you have to actually get up to turn your alarm off. This is assuming you'd work out in the morning. I don't know if you're actually going to do that, but meaning just have stuff set up beforehand,
Yeah.
as a visual cue and reminder to actually do it. So I don't really like hacks necessarily, but that can be a little hack to help actually get you in the gym.
Love it. So Living with the Joneses, I'm going to read your question here, but then I'm going to actually direct you towards our Facebook page we call the Forum. It's a private Facebook group. You can find the link on Twitch. It's with the links there. I think it's underneath the IG. It's labeled the Forum, and as you see the Facebook thing there. And I would encourage you to go and post the same question that I'm about to read there, because we'll be able to answer in more detail off air. However, I am going to read it so that me and Jake and Andrew have an idea of how we're going to respond to you offline. Living with the Joneses says, what is your recommendations for people who have been on a low calorie diet compared to what they should be? What is a good method to increase 700 to 1,000 calories a day when you're not hungry? In his example is he would be eating 1,200 calories, but should be at 2,300 maintenance. Okay, so this is a super nuanced question with a super nuanced answer that we really shouldn't begin to try to answer in this setting. So do make sure you go and hit up that link, and it's a private Facebook group, but if you click to join, we'll bring you in, and then I'd encourage you to post the same exact question. You can just copy paste it right there, and we'll make sure we get an answer to you. Okay. That said, we are going to take this exit at this point. Thank you all for joining us today. Make sure that you come and give us a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and make sure you hit that follow button so that you can come and get the live notifications for when we are doing while we're recording the podcast. Anyway, Living with the Joneses, again, thank you for the raid. Thank you for Miniature Action Jesus. Great name. I love it. we love having you guys here. Please come back, and we're here 3 days a week, so we'll see you soon, hopefully. On that note, stay mission driven, you guys.